Yes. Good morning, guys. I hope all of you are doing good. Yeah, I'm also good. Thank you so much. So let us start our session today and quickly recall a few things which we have been discussing in our previous sessions, especially the last session which we had. Okay. So I hope you guys are ready. Please say yes if you're ready or type ready so that I can understand. Yes. Okay, great. So I have some questions framed for you. I have and prepared some questions for you. Let's try to answer them one by one. Okay. The first question, as you could see on your screen, is corrigendium. Okay. I thought of doing the recap in a different way today. So that is where I have certain questions and for which you need to give the answer. Okay. This is the way we'll interact today. Okay. So you will also come to know where you stand. I will also get to know where you stand. So it's going to be helpful for all of us. Okay. So guys, my first question was, what is corrigendium? What is corrigendium? Yeah, rectification of mistakes, correct. Right? Very good. Rectification of mistakes, you're right. Next question, decree. Come on guys, next question, decree. No, you can't simply say order. I've told you yesterday as well. Yeah, very good, Naman. It is order of the court. It is order of the judicial or quasi-judicial bodies. Okay. So court order can be in short called as decree. Yes, very good. Next one, petition. My next question is, what is a petition? Come on. Yes, guys, please answer. What is a petition? We've discussed yesterday what is petition. Yeah, application filed with court. Very good, Divya. Application filed with court is called as petition. And who's the person who files that petition? Or what is that person called as? The person who files the petition is called as petitioner. Very good. Wonderful. Yes, correct. Next, what do we mean by citation? What do we mean by citation? Come on. What do we mean by citation? I would say citation means reference to the case. See, in order to identify, in order to refer the case, we should have some identification, right? So that's nothing but like a reference. Correct, Dimple? It's a reference to the case. Okay. And what will we find in that reference? Parties, names of the parties. So you've written the second answer, actually the other answer, but I would say reference, and the reference includes names of the parties. Okay. Acha. Can you recall who are those parties who are there in citation? Can you recall what do we call the parties as? Yes. Can you recall? Can you recall the parties? Dimple, you cannot just write dash versus dash. You'll have to fill those blanks. Complainant and defendant. Complainant and respondent. Rohan, and is missed out. Or complainant versus the defendant. Very good. The person who's filing the case is called as complainant, plaintiff, petitioner. And the other person against whom the case is filed is called as defendant or respondent. Very good. Next question. Yeah, correct. All of you right. Next question, official gazette. Next question is, what is official gazette? Official newspaper of the government. Very good, Naman. It is an official newspaper of the government which is released to communicate with the public. So whatever they want to communicate with the public, they will be communicating it through whom, or it through what? Yeah, through the official gazette. Very good. Yes. Then let me ask you the next question. Acha, is official gazette only in physical form or e-form as well? Is it only in physical form? Hard copy? Both. Very good, Sumit. Yes. Both. Yes. E-form as well. Very good. Yes. Next one. What is the proviso? Yes, students, please answer. What is the proviso? Very good. Proviso is nothing but an exception, right? It brings out a special case. That means it brings out an exception. Good. Next. When do you think we should go for reasonable interpretation? Come on, please answer. When do you think we should go for reasonable interpretation? As you know, generally we follow literal interpretation, but sometimes we go for reasonable interpretation. Very good. When literal interpretation fails, Naman has given the right answer. When literal interpretation fails to achieve the objective of law. Very good, Divya. Yes, so fails to achieve the objective of law, then obviously we'll have to shift from literal to reasonable interpretation. Good. So those who are thinking on these lines are correct. And those who are not able to, please now at least understand, whenever literal interpretation fails, that's the time where we think of what? Reasonable interpretation. Next. Now, please tell me, how do we read this? SEC 7 within bracket 1. Okay, already we got the answer. It is section 7 subsection 1. Wonderful, correct. It is section 7 subsection 1. Next one. What is this SEC 8A within bracket 2? Please tell me. What is this SEC 8A brackets 2? Harshal says 8, then A, please. It should be capital A only. Yeah, correct. Section 8A, subsection 2. Good. This 8A, section 8A, it's not 8, it is section 8A. 8A is a different section from section 8. 8A is different from 8B also. 8A is different from 9 as well, right? So 8A is a different section, and that has got a subsection 2. So section 8A, subsection 2. Very good. Next one. SEC 9 within bracket 1 within bracket some 3. Okay, very good. I got the answer already from Sonika. Section 9 subsection 1, and it is clause 3. Very good. Yes, you're right. All of you are right. Then next one. Can you just go to the next one? SEC 10 within bracket 10, then again within bracket 4, and then within bracket A. What is this? Very, very good. It is section 10, subsection 10, clause 4, and subclause A. Very good. Those who have given this answer are absolutely correct, and Priyal is the first one actually to give the answer. Section 10, subsection 10, clause 4, subclause A. Good. Now, going forward, okay, let's talk about the next one. Within bracket 9, within bracket 4, within bracket C. What is this? How will we read? Within bracket 9, within bracket 4, within bracket C. Now tell me. Yes. Section 9. Sumedh, how can we say section 9, beta? It's within brackets. Please understand. So it has to be subsection 9, clause 4, subclause C, as most of your friends are answering. Very good. Those who have said this are absolutely right. Subsection 9, clause 4, subclause C. Now please answer. Do you think, can we understand where we need to go in law when I write like this? Subsection 9, clause 4, subclause C. Do you think it will help us? Do you think it will help us? No, no, no. Please understand. Without knowing the section number, if you know the subsection number or the clause number or subclause number, how is it going to help you? Because subsection is always connected to section. So it's important to understand that whenever simply subsection is given, it is of no use to us, correct? Because there will be many sections which will have subsection 9, subclause 4, clause 4 and subclause C. So kindly understand that because subsection number is not unique, that is where section number is required to be given. So first we should have section number, then only it will help. Acha. Please tell me one thing now. Okay, you understood now? So this one is not of any help. This is not of any help to us. Please understand. Because section number is not mentioned. Now, kindly answer. Can I write this section 9 subsection 1 clause 3 as simply section number 9? Okay, my next question is, can I write simply section number 9 subsection 1 clause 3 as 9? Is it okay? Okay, most of you are saying no. And the right answer is, there's no problem if I write this way also. If I say section 9, subsection 1, clause 3 is simply 9, there's no problem. Like instead of saying Sumed J Shah, if I say simply Sumed, that's okay. Instead of saying Priyanka Goyal, if I simply say Priyanka, that's okay. That's not a problem at all. But if I simply say subsection 1, clause 3, then you may not be able to understand as to which section we are referring. So kindly understand, my friends, if I miss out subsection clauses, it's still okay. But if I miss out section number itself, it's not okay. Okay? I hope you have followed now. All of you followed? Yes, sir, followed. Very good. Chalo. Let's talk about few more questions. Right. Now the question comes, sir, is it that we need to by heart the section numbers or subsection numbers? Come on, tell me. Do we need to by heart? We'll be reading different laws, 5 laws. So do we need to by heart those section numbers, subsection numbers? See, as such, if you understand, no, not required, because they're just for reference. Like, now, if I forget, I'll give you a very simple example, okay? Let's say 10 years later, I meet Shruti Bajaj, okay? I meet Shruti Bajaj on London Bridge. Okay, let's say I have seen her in my classes. I know her, okay? And 10 years later, Shruti Bajaj meets me at London Bridge. Now, she says, hello, sir, good morning. So I give a different expression and say, yeah, good morning. Yes. So then she says, sir, you didn't recognize me. I say, sorry, I just forgot. Now, this is one scenario. Huh? And then let me talk about second scenario. Second scenario is where probably 10 years later, London Bridge, I meet her. And then she asks the same question, sir, do you remember? And I say, yes, I very well remember you. But only thing is, I've forgotten your name. I remember that you were my student during lockdown when we started the classes, right? 10 years back, you were my student. I remember. But then somewhere I forgot your name. Okay, somewhere I forgot your name. Tell me, is she going to be upset in scenario number 1? Where I said, I don't know who are you. Do you think she'll be upset? Answer first, the first scenario. Do you think she will be upset? Yes, very good. She will be upset, boss. She'll say, what is this? He forgot. I have attended his classes for like 4 months, 4.5 months, and then he forgot me. Okay, right, 10 years back, but still, maybe he can remember who am I. Okay, now please tell me, in the second scenario, do you think she'll get upset? Do you think she'll get upset? No. Why? Yeah, very good. Because at least she'll say, sir could recall, sir could at least recollect that I am his student. Maybe he forgot the name because he comes across a lot of students. So it is quite possible that he may not be able to remember everyone's name. Correct? Correct or not? Yes. So same way, please understand, if let us say you don't remember the content at all of the section of the law content, that is any provision, you forget completely. Is it a good situation? No. You should remember what is there in law, what is the content of law, what is the provision of law. But let us say you forget the number. You know, oh, this thing is written in the law. Where is it written? Which section it is written? Which subsection it is written? If you forget, what will happen? Nothing will happen as such. At least you know the law. You don't know the number. You don't know that reference number. That's it. But my dear friends, because I have told you that we are professionals and we are going to practice this, we are going to specialize in these type of laws. That is why the world expects from us that we should remember the number as well. And that is where we will focus on section numbers also. As such, if you don't know number, it's fine. You should know the content. Okay, you should know the content. Like if I don't know your names, let's say after a few years, but I know that you were my student, that's okay. Same way here. But then because world expects from us and we are calling ourselves as experts, we are calling ourselves as professionals, so we should remember the section numbers also. At least we will attempt remembering the section numbers of the different laws which is there in our syllabus. Okay, guys. And that is where yesterday when I have told you to prepare glossary, I was talking about, or I've given you in the list important section numbers also. So if not all the section numbers, at least important ones you should try to remember. Okay, I'll give you one simple example. See, when I say 420, what does it mean, or what do you recall? Immediately, when I say 420, guys, please tell me, what do you recall? 420, 420. Tell me, what do you recall? Chori, okay. Jail, okay. Maybe fraud, yes or no? So guys, actually what is 420? 420 is not fraud, 420 is not chori, 420 is not jail. 420 is a section of IPC, okay, which deals with fraud. Okay, which deals with fraud. So what did people do? People started using this number 420 synonymous to fraud. This is what happens. Okay, so don't you think you are expected to know that section 420? Yes. So same way here, guys, we need to remember, we need to understand, okay, some section numbers, if not all, because people will use section number language. People will just utter the number. They will not give you the content. They will expect us to know that particular content. Okay. I hope all of you have followed me. Now let's go to the next question. Next question is, what is Bare Act? Come on, guys. What is Bare Act? Very good. Act as it is. Correct. Act as it is approved by the parliament. Act as it is made by the parliament. Okay. Is nothing but Bare Act. Bare. Bare means always as it is. So as it is. What as it is? Act as it is. Correct. Good. Next one. Now, please understand. I am giving you some example. I'm giving you some case here which you need to answer. So first, listen to me. Let us say there are two friends. Okay. Let us say there are two friends. Sahil and Naman. Okay, Naman and Sahil are two friends. They are diaper friends, childhood friends. Langotiyar bolte na, so diaper friends. They were neighbors. They knew each other very well. Their parents knew each other. Their families knew each other. Their relatives also knew each other. Okay, because they were in the neighborhood and they were like bestest friends. Okay, not just best, but maybe best se bhi zyada. So now these two friends, Naman and Sahil, who had spent their childhood together, also started doing CA together, 11, 12, CA, everything together. Maybe completed their CA also together. Okay. Now what happened? Naman is getting married. Naman is getting married. So now he sends the invitation card. Okay. He gives the invitation card. And on the invitation card, what does he write? He writes to Sahil. He writes what? To Sahil. Now I want you to answer, how do you think Sahil will interpret this, or Sahil's family will interpret this? Does it mean that they will say that Sahil only is invited, or does it mean that Sahil and family is invited? Okay. Now please tell me, what does this mean? Now don't consider lockdown period, okay? When I'm taking this example, otherwise you'll say, sir, restricted guests are invited and all. I know that, you just leave that. Normally, what do you mean? When he has written to Sahil, who has written? Naman, to Sahil, does it mean only Sahil, or does it mean Sahil and family as well? Few say family also. Okay, very, very good. Those who are saying family also are absolutely correct, because the background I gave you, I said they are like childhood friends, their family know each other, they are best friends, they have spent time together, their relatives know each other. All this background should understand that we cannot use simply literal interpretation here. We cannot just go by words. We need to understand the intentions behind. Like we say, no, bhavna ko samjho, right? Ye mat pucho bhavna kaun hai, but bhavna ko samjho. So that is where, please understand, here Sahil will interpret this as Sahil and family. That means we are using reasonable interpretation. Absolutely right. Wonderful, guys. Chalo, next one. Next one is Gautam Jain can teach. Right? Gautam Jain can teach. So the question comes, is it that only Gautam Jain can teach, or Gautam Jain and someone whom Gautam Jain appointed can also teach? Now, I have told you, or Topyug Educations have informed you that Gautam sir will be taking up, Gautam Jain will be taking up business laws for you, right? So is it possible that I say, oh, today is Sunday, no, I'll not be able to take up session. So Namit Jain on my behalf, see, he's also Jain. So he on my behalf will be taking up the session. Is it possible? Can we do reasonable interpretation here like we did in case of the above example? No, very good. All of you are absolutely right. Here we will not do reasonable interpretation. We have to do only literal interpretation. So if it has been informed that Gautam Jain will teach, so Gautam Jain only has to teach. Correct? Right. You'll say, sir, Virat Kohli is the captain. So Virat Kohli is only the captain. You can't expect Anushka to go and do the captaincy there. We'll have to use literal interpretation only. Very good. You're right. Absolutely correct, guys. Next one. Next one. Okay. In the Companies Act, it is written that company may be formed for legal purpose. Okay. What is written? Company may be formed for legal purpose. So do you think now the word may has to be read as may only, or shall we change the meaning? Come on. Company may be formed for legal purpose. So shall I read the same way? May as may. May as may. Namit says no. Okay. Very good. Most of you have said no now. See, absolutely right. If you're saying no, you're absolutely right. You cannot read may as may. May has to be read as shall, because how can you say may be formed for legal purpose? It shall be formed for legal purpose. Do you think any company can be formed for illegal purposes? No, it's not possible. How do you expect them to allow? So guys, again, try to understand here that this, 1 minute. Yeah. So again, we need to understand this word may has to be read as what? Shall. That means we are using reasonable interpretation. Good. Chalo. Let's go on to the next one. Now, guys, here is something for you, as you could see, maybe a timeline chart, right? Wherein I have written 1947, then we have got 1950. Okay, we've got 1947, we've got 1950. Just observe. Before 1947 scenario, then observe this scenario where it is after 1950. Okay, before 1947 is scenario A, after 1950 is scenario C, and in between, that is 1947 to 1950, there is scenario D. Okay, so I'm asking you some question now. First answer. Why did I take 1947 and 1950? First tell me that. In this timeline chart, why did I take 1947 and 1950? These are years, okay? As you know, these are years. Why did I choose them? Why did I choose the birth year of mine or your birth year, right? So tell me, what does this indicate? Okay, very good. 1947 is the year of independence. And what about 1950? India became republic. Correct. All of you are right. So now, my question is, this Indian Contract Act 1872, Indian Contract Act 1872 was made before 1947. And if you recall, we have discussed who's the lawmaker. We have already said lawmaker is the parliament. So my question is that who has made this Indian Contract Act 1872? Because all of us know our Indian parliament, right, Indian constitution has come only in the year 1950. Right? Very good. Some of you have already rightly answered. It is the Britishers. Okay. So Indian Contract Act 1872 was made by the British Parliament. Correct. Absolutely right. Acha. Chalo. So you have answered this one correctly. Now let's go to the second one. As you could see, the second one which I have written in scenario B is Banking Regulation Act 1949. So this was made after independence, but before India became republic. Right? After independence, but before India became republic. So I want to just check, I just want to understand that this particular Banking Regulation Act 1949 was made by whom? Come on guys, please answer. This was made by whom? Indian Parliament. Okay. Mayank says Indian Parliament. Followed by British, but made by Assembly. Okay. Yes, guys. So let me give you the answer. Here, there was a provisional parliament. When Britishers left India, there was a provisional parliament established by them, wherein the freedom fighters were made as the members of parliament. Okay, for some time. Okay, so this provisional parliament which was there, before India became republic, has made this particular law. And who were the members of this provisional parliament? They were the freedom fighters. Yeah, they were freedom fighters. So those freedom fighters were the members of this provisional parliament who made this law. Okay, yeah. Now coming to the scenario after 1950. Okay, as you could see, scenario C. There I have written Income Tax Act 1961. Can you tell me who has made Income Tax Act 1961? Who's the lawmaker? Very good. Yes, the current parliament is the Parliament of India. Once India became republic, right? Yeah, the Indian Parliament has made. So now I can take many examples in this scenario. The Companies Act 2013 also is of this scenario. Correct. You're absolutely right. Chalo, great. So I guess you're able to understand the provisions properly. I guess you're able to understand the things which I'm sharing with you. But still, I have 2-3 things more. So let me just check that as well. Okay. So next one, guys, I'm into the next one. Subsection versus clause. Okay. Subsection versus clause. Is there any difference between subsection versus clause? Is there difference between subsection and clause? Yes. Okay. Very good. Because you'll find after section, maybe we'll have subsection and then we'll have clause. But it is not necessary. Please note what I'm saying. Please try to remember. Please try to note that it is not necessary that always we'll find subsection. Okay. It's not necessary that always we'll find clause. Maybe there is only subsection and then there is no clause, no subclause, nothing. It stops at subsection. Or who knows, there is no subsection, but there is clause. That is also possible. Okay. So I am trying to show you something here. Please understand. Now, guys. See, this is the Indian Contract Act, the BEAR Act, okay, of Indian Contract Act 1872. Yeah, before you. So if you just see section number 2, okay, section number 2 is what of Indian Contract Act? Interpretation clause. That means nothing but definitions. Interpretation means what? Understanding, right? Definition, defining. So this is nothing but definitions. Now there is something in brackets in the next line, okay? Clause A, right? Or shall I say subsection A? There's something in brackets, A, right? Letter A is in brackets. Same you find that B is in brackets. So there is this 2, okay? Then there is this A within bracket, then there is this B within brackets. So I want you to now answer. This 2 is section 2, no doubt about that. So I'm not asking you that. Now, how will you read, or what will you read this A and B as? Will you read them as subsection A and subsection B, or clause A and clause B is my question. Section 2, subsection A, section 2, clause A. Okay, section 2, clause A, clause B. Very good. Those who said section 2, clause A and clause B are absolutely right. Okay, now I will, please understand, I will give you some clue here. How will you identify whether it is a subsection or a clause? See, immediately after 2, did they start numbering? No. As you could see, they have written something here. In this act, the following words and expressions are used in the following senses. Okay, unless a contrary intention appears from the, something is written. Okay, forget about what is written, but at least understand something is written. Some lines have been written, and then they started with numbering. A, B. Okay, that is where what will happen. This A will be called as a clause, or this B will be called as a clause. Okay, if they have written section 2 definitions or interpretation clause as the title, this is the title of the section. Interpretation clause is the title of the section. After that, if they write something and then start numbering, then that numbers will be clauses. But in case they have not written anything after the title of the section and directly they've started with some numbers, then that will be subsection. Did you follow? Did you follow? If these 2 lines after the title of the section is not there, then this A and B can also be subsection. Now you might say, sir, but yesterday while discussing subsection, we said subsections are denoted by number in brackets, 1, 2, 3, not AB. See, that was a general thing which I have told, but sometimes there can be exception also. Divya says once again, Divya, please pay attention. I've repeated twice. This is the last time I'll be repeating because I want you to pay attention, okay? Section 2, interpretation clause. What is this interpretation clause? It is the title of the section. Then you find in this act, that means some lines are there. And then we have number A, okay? Some number A within brackets. So I said this will be called as clause. However, if let's say after interpretation clause, we don't have these lines in this act and all, these lines are not there. Directly we have number, then that number will be called as subsection. Will be called as subsection. Understand? Yes. Okay, great. Chalo. So let's go to the next one then. Relevance of definitions I want to know. Why do you think any law will have a, it will have definitions? Like you could see just now, Indian Contract Act section 2 has some definitions. Why do you think they are having some definitions? Is there any specific reason for having definitions? Come on, guys. Yeah, very good. Everyone can have their own definitions. Everyone can give their own meaning, right? So it will become difficult for us, right? So please understand, like we have taken yesterday some example of relative. I have told you, according to you, someone else, someone is relative. According to me, someone else is relative. So that way different people will have different perceptions, different meaning. And then if we follow different way, then the act is not followed properly, act is not implemented properly, it will not be able to achieve the objective. So that is where, wherever the law feels that we should have uniform meaning throughout, everyone should understand the term in the same manner. That is where what will they do? They will give the definitions. Okay. So definitions gives us clarity, definitions gives us uniformity. Everyone will understand the law in the uniform manner. That is the idea of definitions. Okay. Correct. Akanksha, you're right. Clarity. Next one. Okay, next question. I'm going to the next question, guys. Now, I want to understand this name which I have written here, the Competition Act 2002. Is it long title or short title? Come on. Is it long title or short title? Yes, all of you are right. It is short title. And I hope you remember, I've told you short title means does not help us in understanding anything except the fact that, okay, the law is relating to this, like here the law is relating to competition, but nothing more we know. Good. Next, the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Okay. Is it short or long? Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Is it short or long? Umid said short and he's absolutely correct here. Others are wrong. You cannot say long. Naman, you're right. Yes, Namit, you're correct. So Arbitration and Conciliation Act. Okay. But what do they want to do with arbitration or conciliation? We don't know anything, right? So please understand, this is not a long title. This is a short title. Next one, the Payment of Bonus Act. The Payment of Bonus Act. Yes, Priyal, you're right. Short reason is not given. Chalo, let's go to the next one. The Payment of Bonus Act. The Payment of Bonus Act. Yes, very good. All of you are right. It is a long title because it's not simply the Bonus Act. It is Payment of Bonus Act. That means this act believes in or aims at paying bonus, right? They want to pay bonus. So something we get to know from here. That's where this is the long title and not short title. Okay, wonderful. So I believe all of you have understood these basics, these fundamentals well, and will be able to apply them. See, now if you've understood, need to apply also. That is where I was giving you examples. That is where today, when I was asking certain questions, I was trying to ask something more. Yeah. So application is very important. So once we understand, then application, and then obviously you have to work on your presentation. Acha, one more thing, one doubt, last question, one last question, sorry. How would you interpret plant and machinery? Okay, how would you interpret the word plant in plant and machinery? Let me put this way. How would you interpret the word plant in the words plant and machinery? So suppose I say plant and machinery, how would you understand the word plant? Come on, what do you mean by plant? Plant means, sir, chotu, green color, which will give fruit once. Is it? No. Please understand, in order to understand the meaning of the word plant, we will take the help of the associated word machinery. Because machinery word is written, that is where I cannot say plant means green color, chotu and all. Okay, plant would mean set of machineries. Like if I say cement plant, that means it is what? Set of machineries relating to manufacturing of cement. Okay, so plant, steel plant, that means set of machineries for manufacturing steel. So plant means set of machineries. Okay guys, but if I change the example and I say, what do we mean by plant and trees? Okay, in this plant and trees, what do you mean by plant? Then you may say, sir, because you have written the word trees, that's why now the word plant means what? Plant means nothing but that green color chotu which gives once. Correct. Okay guys, all of you followed, no? This example as well, this question as well. Okay, Priyal says something. Now, before that, please answer. Did you follow this example of plant and machinery, plant and trees? Right, so we are taking again reasonable interpretation when it comes to plant and machinery and trying to understand. Okay, very good. Acha, Priyal was saying, sir, official gazette. See, as I've told you, official gazette is nothing but the official newspaper. See, whenever we see the newspaper, that's nothing but the communication done by the private publishing house. Whatever is the news around, they are publishing that, and we could see them. Same way, instead of private publishing house, if I say government is publishing some newspaper, now why do they want to publish? Because they want to communicate certain things, like they want to communicate the law which they have made, the notifications which they want to issue, the amendments, the circulars, the orders. So all that which they want to communicate with public, they will be publishing it in the newspaper, which is called as official gazette. Then secondly, I have told you that it is not just the central government, it is even the state government which issues the official gazette. So any government, state as well as central government, can issue their official gazette. And if you remember, yesterday I have shown you how that looks like. Correct? It's simple. Times of India, you find the heading Times of India, right? The Hindu, you find the Hindu. There is some, logo of theirs and all. Same way here, you find Bharat Ka Rajpatra, the Gazette of India. Okay, and then that national emblem, okay, is mentioned there. Okay, so you got it. Very good, Priyal. So thank you. Now we have to proceed further, isn't it? And as I have told you yesterday, we'll have to start our topic number 1, which is the Indian Contract Act 1872. Okay, so let's start with the Indian Contract Act 1872. In short, I will say it is ICA. Okay, ICAI is different, as you know, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We are not talking about that. We are talking about Indian Contract Act. Okay, 1872. So we would like to understand a few things before we step into section number 1, or before we step into, what do you say, the other things. What are those things which we want to understand first? The preamble. Okay, what do we want to understand first? The preamble. What is preamble? Objective. Come on guys, preamble. Objective in short, correct? It's objective in short. It's not preface. We'll say objective in short. Okay, if you want to know the detailed objective, then there's a separate document altogether called as Statement of Objects and Reasons, right? But preamble is very much in the act. When we see the Bare Act, as I've shown you just now, the Bare Act, I'll show it to you again, right? The Indian Contract Act see, preamble, it's a part of the law. Then you have like other things. Okay, so please understand, first I am talking about preamble, that is objective in short, because unless we know the objective, we go forward, then we'll have to come back again, because we may not be able to understand things properly. So it's very important for us to know the preamble. So what is written there? Define and amend certain parts of law relating to contracts. Okay, amend certain parts of law relating to contract. That means there were already certain laws, or there were already certain customs, there were already certain guidelines relating to contract. Correct. So they are saying, now this is Indian Contract Act 1872. So obviously this law will be relating to what? Contracts. So they're saying if at all there were some customs, there were some guidelines, we would amend them. We would amend them. Okay, we'll bring them into this ambit and amend them. And also not just that, but also wherever there are no guidelines, wherever the guidelines are missing, we need to define them. So basically this law, if you understand in short, is about contracts. And relating to contracts, what will they do? They will give you some law, they will give you some guidelines, they will give you some code with respect to defining the contracts and obviously amending. Okay, the provisions relating to what? Defining, yeah, and then amending. Some provisions will be amended, some guidelines will be amended, and some guidelines will be defined or made. Okay guys, did you follow? So this law is relating to what? Please answer. It's relating to contracts. And what do they want to do? They want to frame guidelines for the contractual relationship, for the contracts. Okay, or maybe if already there are some guidelines, there are some customs, then they want to change that. That is the idea. Okay, someone has kept their audio on, and I request them to switch off the audio. Okay, great, thank you. Chalo. Now let's go to the next one. Next one is what? CG. You say, sir, what does CG means? Central government, right? Yeah, of course, central government. But we want to understand, whenever we say central government, what does it mean? And it depends upon the law, respective law. Like we are discussing Indian Contract Act. Here, CG means Ministry of Law and Justice. What does CG means here? What does central government means here? Ministry of Law and Justice. So in case in this law, if I talk about central government, it doesn't mean Narendra Modi. Okay, it doesn't mean Nirmala Sitharaman. It means what? That means it doesn't mean Finance Ministry, doesn't mean PMO, Prime Minister's Office. It means Ministry of Law and Justice. All of you followed this? Come on guys, did you follow preamble and this word CG? Yeah. Okay, let me check. Suppose I talk about Income Tax Act. Okay, let's say I'm talking about Income Tax Act. And there we use the term CG. What do you think CG would mean? What do you think CG would mean? There also should I say Ministry of Law and Justice? Or do you think we will be interpreting in a different way? Very good. Naman said Ministry of Finance. You're absolutely right. It is Ministry of Finance because that comes under the Finance Ministry. Okay, that's relating to taxes and all comes under which ministry? Finance. So whenever we refer Income Tax Act, the ministry will be Ministry of Finance. Okay, same way if I take the example of Companies Act, which is in our syllabus itself. Okay, whenever we are discussing Companies Act and we come across this term CG, what does it mean? What does CG mean when it comes to Companies Act? And the answer is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Yeah, Ministry of Companies, but that is called as Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, MCA we say in short, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay, so I believe you understood that whenever we discuss some law, we need to know what does CG mean. We need to know the respective ministry. It's very important. We are not reading law only from examination perspective. I'm repeating again. We are reading law to get a conceptual clarity as well, because we want to become an expert. We want to practice this law. So that is where I'm sharing these type of things also with you. Okay. So the preamble, that is the objective of Indian Contract Act, is what? That we should be framing some provisions, or already some guidelines are there, some law is there. We want to change that law relating to what? Contracts. And then this is CG. Okay, let me talk about the next one now. Now, if you see here, you will find what? You will find the structure of Indian Contract Act is what I have given. Okay, the structure of what? Indian Contract Act 1872 I have given. If you just observe here, Indian Contract Act has got some chapters. Okay, it doesn't have parts. It has got some chapters. How many chapters? It starts from 1 and it goes on till 11. Okay, it starts from 1, chapter 1, and goes on till what? Chapter number 11. But we have grouped them into certain parts. If you just see, okay, sir, we have to write this. Yes, of course, Sahil, you have to write this. And if you need time, you let me know when I'm explaining. I hope you have noted down, guys. Just answer whether you have noted preamble and CG. All of you have noted this preamble. Yeah, okay, good. So now you'll have to note this as well. But before noting, please understand. Once I share, you understand, and then you write down. Don't simply note down. So Indian Contract Act has got certain chapters, chapter 1 to 11, but we have grouped them into 4 parts, as you could see. Chapter 1 to chapter 6 has got some section number 1 to 75. Okay, chapter 1 to 6 has got section 1 to 75. And these sections are pertaining to general contracts. These sections are pertaining to what? General contracts. Okay, and that is what is covered in CA Foundation. That is what is covered at your CA Foundation level. Did you understand? So when you are talking about CA Foundation, that is your level, what do you have? You have chapter 1 to chapter number 6 of Indian Contract Act in your syllabus, which covers sections 1 to 75. Okay, then you'll say, sir, what is chapter number 7? So next group which I have is chapter number 7, which has got some sections 76 to 123. Okay, sections 176 to 123, and it pertains to what? Sale of goods. But it is repealed. It is repealed. It is withdrawn. Yesterday I told you, repealed means what? Withdrawn. It's no more there. These particular provisions have been deleted, removed. Why, sir? Because they have made a separate law. As you know, there is something called as Sale of Goods Act. Okay, so they have removed it from Indian Contract Act and have put it as a separate law. That's where repealed. Okay, guys. Then coming to chapter number 8 to 10. Chapter number 8 to 10. If you just notice, chapter number 8 to 10 is what? Is special contracts. Special contracts. Okay. Special contracts we will be reading, we will be discussing only at CA inter level. That means it is there in the law, it is not repealed, but it is not there in our syllabus right now. So at CA Foundation level, we don't have to bother about special contract. Okay, provisions relating to special contract is not there. Then please understand what I'm trying to say. Then comes chapter number 11. Chapter number 11 has got section 239 to 266. 239 to 266, which deals with partnership. That is provisions relating to partnership. And that is again repealed. And can you tell me what is the reason that they have repealed chapter number 11? Huh, guys? What do you think? Chapter number 11 in this Indian Contract Act, which deals with provisions relating to partnership, has been repealed. Can you guess the reason? I'm not happy with your answer, Sumit, Priyal. You have to give me specific answer like Naman gave. Very good. See, as I've told you, as I've given you the syllabus, there is something called as Partnership Act. How can you forget that, guys? Already there is an Indian Partnership Act 1932. So they have removed from here. They have removed from here and shifted to Indian Partnership Act. A separate law they have made. Like 3 brothers staying together get separated. No, same way this Indian Contract Act they have separated. They said some provisions relating to Sale of Goods Act, sale of goods. Let's make it into a separate law. Same way provisions relating to partnership. Let's separate it and make a separate law called as Indian Partnership Act. So these two, chapter 7 and chapter number 11, has been removed from Indian Contract Act and made as a separate law, separate act. So what is there in the law as of now? It's chapter 1 to 6 and 8 to 10. Okay, 1 to 6 and 8 to 10. Out of this, what is there in our syllabus? We have only 1 to 6 in our syllabus of CA Foundation. 8 to 10 is not there in CA Foundation, that is there at CA inter level. Is it clear? Come on, guys. Is it clear? Did you follow? Okay, very good. Then you'll say, sir, you have written something here plus schedule, which is repealed. Yeah, there was some annexure as well. As I've told you, schedule is nothing but an annexure. Earlier we had some annexure, we had some schedule that is repealed. That is no more there. So let's not talk about it. Okay, let's not talk about it. Chalo. Let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. Come on. Shall we proceed further? Okay. But here I have some question which maybe you're not asking because maybe you didn't think about it, but I am going to ask. See, why did I say section 1 to 75? Namit, you can note the preamble. Till then I'll be asking some question. What did I say? Why is that I'm saying section 1 to 75? Can't I say simply 75 sections? Is there something wrong when I say directly 75 sections instead of saying 1 to 75? Okay, here if you just observe, I've written 1 to 75 sections are there in our syllabus relating to general contracts. So can I say simply 75 sections? So please understand, I will answer this question. If I say 75 sections, that means I am saying that number wise there are 75 sections. Okay, how many sections are there? 3 sections are there, 7 sections are there. No, 75 are there. But then when I say 1 to 75, that means I am giving the range. I'm giving the range, okay? That the range starts from section 1 and ends at 75, section 75. But exactly 75 sections are there or not, we don't know. Because let me tell you, there is something called a section 19A also. So 19A is different from 19. That means number wise it will be 76 then. Or who knows, if we find more of these alphanumeric sections, then the number of sections might be more than 75. Or if there are some sections which are repealed, omitted, deleted, then number wise the number of sections can be less than 75 also. It is quite possible. Okay guys, so please understand, instead of giving 75 sections, give the range 1 to 75. 1 to 75. Don't just simply say 75 sections because there can be additions, there can be some deletions. Number wise it may not be exactly 75. Okay, chalo, great. I'm happy that you're able to follow. Now let us go ahead with what? Just observe. We want to understand these two terms, jus in rem, jus in personam. Okay? Jus in rem, jus in personam. Jus in rem, jus in personam. Obviously are Latin maxims. What is jus in rem? It means right against or in respect of a thing. Okay, jus in rem means what? Right against or in respect of a thing. Whereas when I say jus in personam, it means right against or in respect of a specified person. It means right against or in respect of a specified person. So, sir, what does it mean? Okay, I'll give you an example. Now I'm having a laptop in front of me. This is my laptop, correct? So do you think anyone can come and take away my laptop? Anyone can come and destroy my laptop? Anyone can come and take this laptop and sell it off or gift it to someone? No, it's not possible. Very good, Sonika. Right? That means I have got right against or right in respect of the laptop, my laptop, correct? I have certain right in respect of a thing. Laptop is a thing. So I've got a right in respect of a thing. This is jus in rem. This is jus in rem. Now, sir, what is jus in personam? So let me give you an example. Let's say me, Gautam Jain, has contracted with Akanksha. Me and Akanksha have done some contract. I said, Akanksha, I will be supplying you 100 pieces of pens. 100 pieces of pens for ₹10 each. Because Akanksha wanted this, so I said I will be supplying. That way we have done some contract. And let's say I have supplied these 100 pens as agreed. Okay, 100 pens as agreed, I have supplied to Akanksha. But Akanksha is not giving me the payment at rupees 10. So that means 1000 rupees is what Akanksha has to pay now, but she is not giving me that payment. So do you think I will have right against Akanksha here? Come on guys, answer. Yes, Naman. Good. So right against Akanksha. Yes, I have. So that means Akanksha, who's a person. Akanksha is a person, right? So I have right against a person. This is nothing but just in personam. Okay, so whenever we talk about right against or in respect of a thing, then it is called as just in rem. Whereas when I talk about okay, just in personam, it means what? It means right against or in respect of a specified person. Okay, I hope all of you have understood just in rem and just in personam and also noted. So say understood and noted if you have done both, so that I can move ahead. Okay, let me give you one more example. Let's say Sonika has a car. Now, do you think it is possible that Shreya goes and takes away that car? Not possible, because if Sonika has a car, she has the right against that car. She has the right in respect of that car. It is who Sonika who will decide whether to use that car, sell that car, or let that car be as it is and use only for taking selfies. Okay, it's her wish completely. It's not Shreya who will decide that. That means that is just in rem, right against a specific thing. Very simple. And now, when I say, let us say that Gautam Jain and Ajit have done a contract. Okay, Ajit said, sir, I want the coaching for this subject called as CA Foundation Business Laws. I said, okay, I'll be able to give you. So he paid me, let's say, the fee. Now I have to give the service. So if I am not giving the service, do you think he will have right against me? Do you think Ajit will have right against me? Yes. So what is it? Is it just in personam or just in rem? Is it just in personam or just in rem? Correct, Ajit. It is just in personam because Ajit is having right against a particular person. So when it is person, personam, see clue also is there in the name. Personam means person and rem means what? Thing. Okay, so just in rem is nothing but against a thing or in respect of a thing. Personam means against a person. Okay. Now, next thing. If I talk about Indian Contract Act, kindly understand Indian Contract Act is on the basis of just in personam. Okay, the basis, if someone asks what is the basis for Indian Contract Act, the basis for Indian Contract Act is just in personam, because we are talking about a contract and contract happens between two persons, two parties. So we are going to mainly focus on, or this law mainly focuses on what? Person, parties, right against contract, contractual relationship between the persons or parties. That is where I have written basis of Indian Contract Act. So you have to remember, if someone asks what is the basis of Indian Contract Act, you will say just in personam. Okay, just in personam. Now, let me ask you one simple question. Okay, guys, till then those who have not noted can note down this just in rem and just in personam. Okay, let me ask till then. Yeah, very fundamental question. Is there any difference between party and person? When I say party and when I say person, is there any difference? Is what I want to understand. Party and person. Don't say simply yes or no. I have told you yesterday also. Please try to answer, because you know my next question will be what is party, what is person. So simply if you say yes, it is not acceptable. Very good. Mostly people are writing the right answer. Like page and paper has a difference. Same way party and person also has a difference. When I say person, maybe we are referring to one single person. But when I say party, maybe there is one person in it or group of persons is there. Like we say ladki wale, ladke wale. So there is one party ladki wale and there's another party ladke wale. Okay, yes or no? The groom and the bride. So groom side is one party and bride side is another party. So does it mean there is only one person there? No. So when we say person, probably we think of only one. But when it comes to party, it can be one or more. Please understand, party can include even one person. Party can include even multiple persons. Okay, anything. But person normally means only one. Only one. Please understand. Sir, we need to go to this minute level and understand everything. Yes, please understand that we are going to be professionals. I'm repeating this maybe like now 20th or 25th time. Okay, so please understand we are not here for only passing examination which is conducted by ICI, but we'll be able to, or we should be able to understand these things in such a way that later on we can practice it. We can follow the law properly, guide the people properly to follow law. Okay, chalo. Very good. Now, someone was saying, sir, will you be providing any notes? Will you be providing any material to us? Right? Someone was asking this question to me. Of course, yes. So just have a look at the book which I'm going to provide. I have told you already on day one also, if you remember. I failed to understand that why do you ask me the questions which I have already answered, which I have already shared with you. Maybe because you were not there on that day or you have not bothered to watch the video. We have already put the videos on our YouTube channel, so you can always watch them, right? If you have missed out any video, right? So now see, this is the material which I have prepared, okay, and which I'll be giving it to you. So because it was not required now, that's where I have not given. So once now we have started the topic today. So obviously tomorrow if I have to continue with the class, don't you think I'll have to give you the material? Yes. So that is where I'll be giving. And then I've also shared with you that the book which I'll be providing will be in 3 volumes. Volume 1 will be Indian Contract Act, as you could see, right? And then volume 2 will be Sale of Goods Act and Indian Partnership Act. And volume 3 will be Limited Liability Partnership, that is LLP Act and Companies Act. That way 3 volumes is what I'm going to provide, and which form also we have told you it is e-form the book will be provided, right? Yeah, PDF of that will be shared with you. Namit, so now guys, this is the first volume, as you could see, the Indian Contract Act, in which various topics are there. I have named it as Unit 1. Unit 1 Indian Contract Act. Same way Unit 2 you will find Sale of Goods Act, then Unit 3, Unit 4, like that we have. In this Unit 1, there are certain topics. Same way Sale of Goods Act also will have certain topics. Because if we have to read section 1 to 75 and we read like at one, what do you say, read it as one group, it will be difficult. So that's why we have made some subgroups. Okay. So topic number 1 is nature and kinds of contract. You will say, sir, why are you not using chapter 1? The answer is very simple. If I use chapter, the word chapter, you may get confused because you know BEAR Act has got chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I'm using here chapter 1, nature and kinds of contract, you might think, oh, this chapter is chapter of BEAR Act. But no. As you could see the index which I have made, I have a different way of grouping the provisions. Instead of having 6 chapters, I have divided them into 10 topics. For easy reference, I have divided them into 10 topics. Okay. So I will not use the word chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. I will use the term topic. But if I have to use from the BEAR Act, then what will I say? Chapter. So in case in my discussion, I say chapter 1, that means I'm referring to BEAR Act. But if I say topic number 7 of unit 1, that means I'm referring to my book. Is it clear? If I say chapter number 2, that means I'm referring to, come on guys, if I'm saying chapter 2, please answer. I'm referring to, if I say chapter 2, then I'm referring to, come on, BEAR Act. Very good, Ajit. Very good. And if I say topic 4 of unit 1, topic 4 of unit 1, what is that I'm referring to? Your book. That means our book, we can say, not just my book now, it will be your book as well. So our book, it's not BEAR Act. Okay. Yes, this is unit 1 as I have numbered it. So this is the numbering done by me. Okay. So some introduction is there, which we will take up a bit later. You'll say, sir, why? In the beginning only introduction has to be given. Yes, beta, but in this introduction I have written even not just about section 1 or 2. I have written about like section 1 to 75 in a comprehensive manner, in a concise manner. I have tried giving introduction here, which you will understand after some time. Right now there is no need. Okay. So now if you just see, I have written after this, the Indian Contract Act consists of following two parts for us. Okay. Because you know, anyways, provisions relating to sale of goods is omitted. Same way, provisions relating to partnership is omitted. They are omitted because they've made a separate law. So they've shifted. Which are those chapters? Can you just mention them? Which chapters got repealed? Which chapters got omitted? Please tell me in this Indian Contract Act. Quickly. See, I'm saying chapter. That means I'm referring to Bare Act. I want number. I want number first. Sumer, you can't write this 7, you know, Roman number 7 has to come, beta. Okay. Real, it's not 8. It's chapter 7 and chapter number 11. Very good. Chapter 7 and chapter 11. Chapter 7, sale of goods. Chapter 11, partnership. 8 to 10 is special contracts, which is very much there. It is not repealed. Okay. So just have a look. General, the Indian Contract Act consists of following two parts. Okay. General principles, that is general contract related principles, which is chapter number 1 to 6, covering section 1 to 75. And then we have got some special kinds of contracts. Okay. You'll say, sir, what are those special kinds of contracts? So I have written in front of you. I know you will not understand it now, but no problem. I will explain you later. Okay. A bit later. This indemnity, guarantee, bailment, pledge, agency. So you don't have this in syllabus, but still we'll be referring them whenever required. Referring. That means not that we'll learn that as such, but refer them to have a basic idea about it. Okay. This is there in chapter number 8 to 10, covering section 124 to 238. What is our syllabus? I've already told you, chapter 1 to 6, covering section 1 to 75. Okay, guys? Yes. Now see the next one. I'm reading. Jus in personam. What is jus in personam? Jus in personam means right against or right in respect of a specified person. Okay. Example. X agrees to sell his horse to Y for rupees 10,000. Here, this contract vests some duties and liabilities on each party against each other. X has a right to seek an enforcement of the price of the horse against Y, isn't it? X can always ask for the price, that is rupees 10,000. From whom? Obviously Y, and not anybody else. Similarly, Y has a right to enforce delivery of horse against X and not anybody else, isn't it? Y can ask for that horse from whom? X. So X can ask 10,000 from Y. Y can ask horse from X. So this creates what? Jus in personam. X is having right against a person. Same way Y is having right against a person. So it is what? Jus in personam. Then jus in rem means a right against or in respect of a thing. Right against or in respect of a thing. Example, X has a flat. He has exclusive right to have quiet possession and enjoyment of this flat against everybody. Everyone is under an obligation not to have interference in the rights of X. This right of X, which is available against the whole world, creates jus in rem. Correct? No? X is having flat, so he's having all the rights, okay, with respect to that flat against the whole world. No one can disturb his possession. No one can disturb his title. No one can disturb his ownership. So that is where what? Jus in rem. Okay, next line. The law of contract creates jus in personam and not jus in rem. That's what I said. Basis for Indian Contract Act is nothing but jus in personam. Okay, next. What is written in the note? See, now I'm going to discuss section 1. Okay, soon after this, now I'm taking up section 1. We have discussed preamble. We have discussed the central government. What does central government mean? We have discussed the structure. We have understood the syllabus. Then we have understood what is jus in rem and jus in personam. The basis of Indian Contract Act, we said, is jus in personam. Correct? Now we are going to get into the section numbers. Section 1. Starting with what? Section 1. So when I say section 1 of which act? Obviously, if I don't mention anything, you know we are referring to section number of Indian Contract Act. Correct, Naman? You're right. Right? We are referring to Indian Contract Act. So please understand, unless otherwise stated, unless otherwise specified, the section numbers which I will be quoting or the section numbers which you will be finding here will be of Indian Contract Act. That means if I say section 3 of Indian Majority Act, then obviously that section is of Indian Majority Act 1875, not of Indian Contract Act. But if I simply say section 3, what does it mean? It means section 3 of Indian Contract Act. Okay, so that's what I have written in the note. In our discussion on this part of the book, unless otherwise stated, the sections mentioned are those of the Indian Contract Act. Did you follow till here? Did you follow till here? Yes, followed. Very good. Now let's go to section number 1. So guys, the notes which you could see here, one you are able to find there is some handwritten notes and another one is printed one, typed one. Okay, typed one, printed one, typed one. So this handwritten one is nothing but the things which I write on board. If there would have been face-to-face class, I would have written something on board, isn't it? So that's something which I normally write on board is written here in front of you, as you could see. Okay, handwritten. And the typed one is normally what we provide you in the printed form. We take the printout of that and we give you the hard copy of it. Okay, so that is the second one. This way, there is handwritten stuff and there is, yeah, which one I am going to share with you? Obviously, I'm going to share the typed one. This handwritten one, I expect you to write. That is where you are preparing your classroom notes. Okay. The board thing, I don't give you the board in the class, right? You note down from the board. Same way you have to note down from the board here also, right? But printed one will be providing. Printed one, normally what we do is give you in hand. But because of lockdown situation, we are not able to do that. But once the situation improves and we resume the face-to-face classes, then obviously we'll give you the hard copy, that is the printout in the physical form, okay, of those material or notes to you. However, those who are not from Hyderabad, obviously we may courier them. Okay, we may provide them by way of courier. Okay, or you may take a print of it yourself. That's also possible. Okay, guys. So I believe your doubt with respect to the material or notes is clear. Let's move ahead to section number 1. So section 1, when I say, it's nothing but of Indian Contract Act. So what is there in section 1? Can you recall? Generally, section number 1 comprises of, come on, your time starts now. Generally, section number 1 comprises of what? Generally, section number 1 comprises of what? See, I didn't say, Naman, this way details of the act. Please be precise. Don't be general. Now you have to be precise. I have already told you yesterday. Section 1 comprises of 3 things: title, extent, and commencement date. Very good, Divya. You have written the right answer, precise answer. Priyanka as well. So title, extent, and commencement date. So question comes, what is the title? We already know. The title is the Indian Contract Act 1872, which means what? It means it's a short title. It's a law relating to contracts in India. Okay. Then comes extent. This extent which is given here is geographical extent. That means they are saying this Indian Contract Act will apply to what? So they said to whole of India. To what? To whole of India. Earlier it was written as whole of India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. But then because of the removal of that Article 370, which was giving special status to Jammu and Kashmir, got abolished. That's why here also, if you just observe, Jammu and Kashmir, this except Jammu and Kashmir is removed. Okay, this is removed. This is of no use now. So we can say simply, the Indian Contract Act is applicable to now what? Whole of India. Whole of India, including Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, it was not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir. Why was it not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir? Because Jammu and Kashmir had a special status as per Article 370 of the Constitution. But since that got abolished, that's where this. Okay. I hope I'm clear, guys. Article 370, as I've told you, is the article of the constitution which used to give special status to Jammu and Kashmir. But recently in October month, they have abolished that article. That means the special status is not there with Jammu and Kashmir. So that is where now this Indian Contract Act is applicable to whole of India, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. Now, so tell me, will Indian Contract Act be applicable to state of Telangana as well? Will Indian Contract Act be applicable to state of Telangana as well? Yes, because it is applicable to whole of India, and India includes Telangana. Same way if I say Goa, answer is yes. So whole of India it will apply. Okay, sir. So we know the title, we know the applicability. Now let us talk about commencement date. Meaning when does or when did this law commenced? When was this law implemented? Okay, maybe they might have thought of this law in 1870. Who knows? They might have made the bill in 1871. Who knows? So like that, maybe different dates. But when did they first implemented this law? So answer I have written there, 1st September 1872. Okay, 1st of September 1872 is the date when this got commenced. Then you might say, sir, if there are certain amendments, let's say some section got amended yesterday, do you think that will also apply from 1st of September 1872? If they brought some amendment yesterday, is it that it is going to be applicable from 1st September 1872? No, very good. You're absolutely correct. It's not possible. And we have told or we have discussed already that very rarely they will go for retrospective implementation. Very rarely. Generally, they go for what? Immediate? No. Generally, they go for prospective. That is a future date. And sometimes maybe immediate. But retrospective, very, very rarely. Okay, guys? So please understand, this date, 1st September was the first date. After that, whenever they got some amendments, there was a different date. Okay, we are not there to discuss all the dates. We're there to discuss only the first date, and that is what I have written, 1st September 1872. Okay, guys? Very good. Chalo. Now let's go to section number 2. And in section 2, let me tell you, there are clauses, as I have shown you as well, right? I have already shown you the Bare Act, where I was talking about clause subsection. If you just see section 1, title, extent, commencement, right? Here you could see. Then section 2 is what? Definitions. In these definitions, we have got various clauses, A, B, C, like that. We have got various clauses. Okay. So now, guys, please understand, we are not going to discuss. What does Sachin say? Excellent teaching, sir. Oh, thank you, Sachin. Yeah, please participate here now. So now I am talking about section 2. Section 2 gives us definitions, which has got various clauses. But my dear friends, we are not going to discuss all the clauses now. We are going to discuss now one of the clause called as section 2 clause H. Because see, when we are saying we have first topic, okay, when we are saying we have first topic, nature and kinds of contract. Nature and kinds of contract. So we want to understand the nature of contract. We want to understand kinds of contract. Okay, you want to understand that first. Before I go into any other topic or any other thing, I need to understand, you need to understand first, what is a contract? What is a contract? Okay. So, and see, if you recall preamble also, in preamble we said it's about what? Defining and amending the law relating to contract. So you should know the meaning of the word contract. No, if you don't know contract, the meaning of contract, how can we proceed further? So that is why the first topic which I am taking now after the introduction part is nature and kinds of contract. So let us discuss definition of contract, which comes from 2 clause H. Section 2 clause H. Okay, section 2 clause H. Okay, sir. So what does that section 2 clause H says? What is a contract? It says that contract means an agreement which is enforceable by court of law. Okay, what is a contract? Contract means an agreement which is enforceable by law. Okay. See, Ajit is saying agreement between parties. Okay. That is the way we think. Now we cannot go by our own definition. We have to go by the definition provided in the act. Please understand. If the act says this is what is the definition which we need to consider, then we cannot consider any other definition. We have to stick to the definition given here. So my dear friends, please note what is a contract. As per section 2 clause H, contract means an agreement enforceable by law. So in short, I have written it for you here. Agreement plus enforceability is nothing but a contract. Okay. Okay, sir. So contract means an agreement. Contract means agreement with enforceability. Which one is correct? Obviously the second one, agreement with enforceability. Now the question comes. What? Question is, sir, what is an agreement? What is enforceability? You know, because if they said contract is agreement which is enforceable, don't you think we need to understand what is enforceability? What is an agreement? That is also the question which we should raise, no? So that is where we need to go to some other clause. Okay. So when it comes to agreement, the term agreement is defined in section 2 clause E. Section 2 clause E. E. Yeah, E for elephant. So it has got the definition of agreement. What does it mean? They say promise and every set of promises forming consideration for each other. What, sir? क्या बोल क्या रहे हैं आप? Yeah, it's very simple. Promise or set of promises forming consideration for each other. Meaning, promise with another promise is nothing but agreement. Okay. In simple language, if I say, agreement is nothing but what? Promise with promise. Okay, guys, please understand. Promise with promise, because they said promise or set of promises forming consideration for each other. Okay, forming consideration for each other. That means if I have given promise, what did I get in return? What did I get as a consideration? Again, a promise. You got promise from me, I got promise from you. So this promise, when we play that promise game, no, it becomes nothing but an agreement. Okay, so this is what section 2 clause E says, that promise and every set of promises forming consideration for each other is agreement. In short, you may write promise plus promise. Where is it coming from? Section 2 clause E. What is the contract? Agreement enforceable by law. 2 clause H. Now the next question comes. Sir, what is promise? Enforceability is still pending. Huh? I have not discussed enforceability. Now I'm talking about promise. What is promise? So please understand, that is also defined. That is defined in section 2 clause B. That is defined where? Section 2 clause B. Okay. What does that section 2 clause B says? It says an offer when accepted becomes a promise. A proposal when accepted becomes a promise. Okay. Proposal, that is nothing but offer. When accepted becomes a promise. So if I give an offer, let's say I give an offer to Natasha that would you like to buy this pen? And she says, yes, I would like to buy. That means my offer of this selling this pen is accepted by Natasha. So that means now what will that result in? That will result in a promise. Okay, that means she is promising that I will take this pen, okay, for whatever price, and I am promising that yes, I will give this pen once you pay that amount. So this way there is a promise between us. Did you follow, guys? So for discussing the definition of contract, we went into the definition of even agreement. We also went into the definition of promise. But one thing is still pending now. We cannot say definition of contract is over. Why? Because we need to understand what is the meaning of enforceability. Okay, so let us discuss now enforceability. Come on, guys. Do you know what is enforceability by any chance? Please answer. Do you know by any chance what is enforceability? Okay, no problem. If you don't know, it's absolutely fine. It means filing a suit in the court of law. Okay, it means what? Filing a suit in the court of law. It means compelling someone to perform. Okay, simple words, file a suit in the court of law. can file a case in the court of law. You can compel, you can ask the court to compel that party to perform. Okay. Now I said Natasha agreed to buy this pen. Later on she says, no, I will not buy. So I can go to the court of law and file a suit against Natasha, and then court can compel Natasha to buy this pen. If this is possible, then that is enforceability. Okay, so simply speaking, what is enforceability? Going to court of law, filing a suit with court of law, filing a case with court of law, and court of law can compel. Court of law can compel the party to perform. This is enforceability. So now you might say, sir, where is this meaning coming from? This meaning is our understanding. This is not the meaning coming from Indian Contract. Indian Contract Act has not given the definition for enforceability. It is we guys who have understood, or we understand enforceability. So we are taking, yeah, enforceability comes from, maybe you can say dictionary also, or our general understanding. So it's not, the meaning of enforceability is not given in Indian Contract Act. So general meaning we can take. Whenever there's a specific meaning assigned in the act, then we cannot deviate. We have to follow that meaning only given in the act. However, if there is no meaning given in the act, then we can take some other meaning, general meaning also. Yes. Now, Priyal says enforceability means obligation to perform. Yes. So you can go to court and court will compel, court will make that person perform. Like Natasha, if I suppose Natasha is not taking this pen, I can go to the court of law and say, my lord, Natasha promised that she will take this pen, and court will then compel her to take this pen. So this is nothing but enforceability. Okay. Seriousness is being checked here, right? Are you getting it? All of you? Come on guys, did you follow till here? I have to ask you some questions now. Let me just check whether you're able to follow or not by way of some questions. Chalo, you're able to follow, great. Now answer my question. Is it that every agreement is a contract? Answer. Is every agreement a contract? Is it that every agreement is a contract? Very good, I'm happy. Most of you are giving the right answer, and answer is no. How can we say every agreement is contract? Because agreement has to be coupled with enforceability. Only when it is coupled with enforceability, then we can say it is contract. Okay? Acha, can I say every contract is an agreement? Yeah, very good. Priyal has already answered this. Very good, Priyal. Right. Every contract is an agreement, but every agreement is not a contract. Because in order to be a contract, enforceability has to be there. See, it's very simple, no? I might invite Sahil today. I say, Sahil, please come over. Okay, come to my place for a cup of tea today. Today evening, let's have a cup of tea together. So please join me. This is what I say. Now, let's say he comes to my house at 5 o'clock, as I have asked him. And now he comes and, yeah, maybe he comes to my house. And then I say, sorry, I don't have milk. I don't have, what do you say, tea powder. So that means basically I'm saying I cannot provide you tea. Actually, I said, please come over for tea. And he agreed for it. But later on, I'm saying, no, I cannot provide you this tea. Do you think he can take me to the court of law for this? Okay. Please tell me, is this agreement or contract? Is this agreement or contract? You're saying no, absolutely correct. Very good. Yes, this is agreement. This is not a contract, because here there is no enforceability. This is not enforceable, guys. Okay. We didn't had any intentions. Neither he had intention nor I had intention. When I proposed a cup of tea to him, do you think I had the intention that if he doesn't come, then I will sue him in court of law? Or do you think he had that intention that if I go to his house and he doesn't provide, then I will go to court of law? No, it's not possible, guys. So kindly understand, yeah, it is a social agreement. It's nothing but an agreement done, right, casually. So this cannot be said to be a contract because it lacks enforceability. Okay, so first question complete. Now next question. Guys, Indian Contract Act did not give the definition of enforceability, but did it give something else? Do you think did it give something else? Sir, what something else? Something else like conditions for enforceability. Don't you think now, let's say a child who's aged 5 years goes to court of law and say, my lord, uncle agreed to give me a toffee, but is not giving. So now the court of law will take up that case of that 5 years old. Do you think so? Or imagine a drunkard person, okay, Beuda, drunkard, fully drunk. Now he says, he goes to court of law and say, my lord, I have done some contract with him. Now he's not providing that. They'll say, go home. Okay, go home. Come in a conscious state of mind. You're unconscious now. So don't you think like that there will be certain conditions? If you want to go and file the suit, don't you think there shall be certain conditions which should be fulfilled? Yes. And that's where we have got something called as section number 10. Okay. We have got section number 10. So if you just see, I have written here conditions for enforceability. Nothing but section number 10. Nothing but section number 10. Here we'll be discussing those conditions for enforcement. If these conditions are fulfilled, yeah, correct. Nayan, you're right. So if these conditions are fulfilled, then only the agreement becomes enforceable. And if the agreement becomes enforceable, that is where it will become a contract. That is where it will become a contract. So when we discuss in our next class, what will we start with? We'll start with conditions of enforceability. Okay. Now we cannot start with conditions of enforceability because it will take time. So right now we are not starting with that. Okay. Next class will be starting with conditions of enforceability. Okay. Acha. Sir, this one, yeah, this we have already answered. You have answered. No, every agreement is not a contract, but every contract is an agreement. True. You have answered that question. Acha, one more question. Sir, is there any clue? Ajit, how can we skip the sections which is there in our syllabus? We will not skip anything. Rather, we'll cover more only. But the sections which are not there in our syllabus, like special contracts, which I said is not there in our syllabus, obviously there is no need to read that at CA foundation level. But still I said, maybe in brief, I'll tell you those special contracts also when required, not now. Okay. Yeah. Now, I was saying that maybe you can ask this question, sir, is there any clue to remember this 2 clause H? 2 clause H is for contract. Yes, very, very easy. There's a trick. Sometimes there is some logic, sometimes there is some illogical logic, Chindi logic. So I'm giving you that Chindi logic. Contract, 2 clause H. Contract starts with what? C. C and H. CH, chocolate. CH, chalk. CH, choice. CH, champerty. Like that. CH, chamcha. So easy, no? Okay, contract, 2 clause H. So in case you are confused, maybe this illogical logic, Chindi logic will help you. I hope you're enjoying and even able to remember. Okay. Right. Okay. Next one. 2 clause E. Okay. Sonika. Yeah. 2 clause E is agreement. I'm giving you the Chindi clue again to remember here. Okay. 2 clause E. Agreement. Just understand in agreement. E. 3 times we have got E. So 2 clause E is agreement. You can remember. Once you just, notice this, observe this. Obviously, you will not forget that later. Lifetime you will not forget. So 2 clause E is agreement. Okay. Next one. Promise. Is there a clue for that? Yes. See, when you do promise, normally what you do is ulta of the promise. Normally what you do is ulta of the promise. Suppose I have promised. Okay. Or let's say some person who's a smoker. He promises that I'll not smoke. Next day only, or maybe same evening only, he will do ulta of it. That means he'll start smoking. So same way, if you just see, you do ulta, it will become B. P ka ulta. Okay. Yeah, someone has already written, Priyal has written, P opposite is B. Yeah, so P, you do just reverse or ulta, it will become B. So 2P, 2B is promise, or you can remember like this, that promise P, ulta, nothing but 2. Okay. So this way we can have some Chindi logic also to remember. So the idea is not just to have fun. The idea is that we should be able to learn also through that fun. Otherwise, it will not help. Okay. Then you will say, sir, how do we remember section 10 is conditions of enforceability? Okay. Let me tell you what I have done is the conditions I have divided into 10. There are some conditions. I have grouped them in such a way or divided them in such a way that the number comes exactly 10. So 10, 10, bus, ऐसा भी सोच सकते हैं, right? We can think like this. 10 means in Hindi 10, bus, 10 bus. So if you want to catch that bus of enforceability, 10 is required, 10 conditions are required. So section 10 deals with what? Conditions of enforceability. And when I'm saying section 10, please understand it is section 10 of Indian Contract Act. Okay, guys? Chalo. Quickly now, please tell me, did you follow today's class? Did you enjoy today's class? And as you know that after half an hour, we'll be having a general session, interactive session with all your doubts relating to registration, relating to ICI, Board of Studies, everything we are going to discuss after half an hour, okay? So are you enjoying or not? Please say enjoying if you're enjoying. Yes, mostly people are saying that they're enjoying. Almost all are saying enjoying. That's great. Great to hear, guys. If you have any feedback to share, anything to share, please don't hesitate. Always ping me, message me, okay? I'm also enjoying with you a lot. God bless you all. Thank you so much. See you all after half an hour, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye, beta. Bye-bye. God bless you. Right. Good. Thank you.